Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is our Game a Day challenge for November 2022. These are the 30 games I played for November 30, April 30 days has September, April, June, and November. 30 games, the 30 games I played for November. We'll be talking about 19 of them loosely, and then 11 of them in a bit more detail, the same as we've been doing for several months now. Now, this is going to be the second last video in the series. The second last video in the series, I think probably because I'm pretty sure this is only a challenge I did for 2022. For those who don't know, who haven't been following along, basically every single day in 2022 I've been playing a new game. No, that does not actually mean every single day, it means every day on average. So if I play 2 games today and no games tomorrow, well, that basically counts, and vice versa. But basically, a new game every single day, a game that is new to me. I do allow myself some leeway in the sense that I do count some degree of expansions, but not manipulating and abusing the system. So for example, the example I frequently give is I can count a Marvel Champions expansion once, but I can't count every single expansion every single time unless it adds something notable to the genre. But in any case, diving into that, so like I said already, this is going to be the second last in the series. This is for November. We'll be doing this again for December when I have all of those done. I managed to keep up with a game a day every single day for the whole year, which I'm happy with, but also I don't know if it's something I want to continue. I'd rather spend 2023 being more restrictive about the games I take on and the games I cover. I don't know if I'll be able to though, because well, my eyes are always bigger than my stomach, especially when it comes to board games. I always love board games. I always want to talk about the next one, play the next one, try the next one, but maybe being a bit more restrictive and focusing on ones I really love might help me a bit more. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll try I don't know. Let's focus on that later. For right now, this is the second last in the series, diving into November, and starting off the bat, we're going to go through very quickly the 19 games that the 19 games that I will not be talking about in depth, starting with Basilica. Basilica from Portal Games. Overall, enjoyed that one. It's an area control game. I have a review up for it, 2-player area control. I didn't find it overly compelling. It was good. It didn't strike me as one that I need to keep. Then we have Exit the Game, The Lord of the Rings. In general, I won't be counting exits, undos, unlocks, all those too often. But this is only the second exit game I've ever played, and the first one was a long time ago. I enjoyed it. I still think I prefer the Unlock series, but I definitely enjoy the Exit series as well. Lord of the Rings was definitely a nice twist as well, just because I like the theme of Lord of the Rings. I don't know if it's better or worse than any other unlocks, or Exit games, because I've only played 2 of them. Then we have the Rocketeer from the OP. I like The Rocketeer. It's a 2-player head-to-head game of a little bit area control, but ultimately trying to get points. It definitely had a compelling engine to it, while also I felt that it ran a little too long for the experience it gave me. Then we have Tentrix, which will be an upcoming Kickstarter game. Tentrix is a polyomino Tetris game that is the most faithful Tetris implementation I've seen so far. I also don't know if I need the most faithful Tetris implementation. There wasn't enough in the game to really mix up the experience. It did Tetris well, but I think I'd rather play other polyomino games. Then we have Dinner in Paris, which has an element of polyomino going on, but not really. Dinner in Paris is a game about trying to manage your shops, your restaurants around the edge of a square, while trying to go for different goals and trying to build out your... There's a name for them, I can't remember the name. You're trying to build out aspects of your restaurants, the various seating or whatnot, trying to be mindful of area control and pushing in on an enclosing space. I found it enjoyable. I don't know if I'm overly compelled by it, but I definitely enjoy the experience. We have Meeples and Monsters from AEG, which is one that I liked, but is also very light. I'd rather play Lords of Waterdeep. I'd recommend Lords of Waterdeep, but the theme was very adorable, a very charming game, and there was a degree of tableau building that was fun, but I don't know if there's enough variability to keep me overly invested in the game. We have The Warriors, another game from the OP, a solo or cooperative, although more cooperative than solo, a cooperative game of trying to manage your gang as you make your way through multiple other gangs, fighting them one at a time as you go through the experience. Enjoyed it while not being... I'm not a fan of the IP, the IP behind it. I don't know or care about it. And the game itself, I thought, was simple, enjoyable, but not overly compelling. Then we have The Last Aurora. Well, I think just Last Aurora. Last Aurora from Ares Games is a post-apocalyptic racing game through the Winter Wasteland. I like the tableau building of the game, but I thought the economy was a bit too tight and the game a bit too short to be overly rewarding. We have My Little Flower Shop from Steve Finn, from Dr. Finn's Games. My Little Flower Shop is another one of his games. I've been going through his games recently, a bunch of them. I still think Biblios is my favorite of his games, but My Little Flower Shop was a basically set collection, gathering different sets of flowers and vases and trying to be mindful of managing your customers and all that. It was okay, but a little light, too light for my taste. Then we have Here Be Dragons. Here Be Dragons is almost a Carcassonne-style tile-laying game with a degree of adventure, exploration, and building up your castles. I thought it was too long and too fiddly for the experience it gave. It definitely gave you some fun things to do, but I don't know if it's one that I feel the need to return to. We have Zoo Tycoon, which was a Kickstarter game, which I believe by the time you watch this, the Kickstarter is over. Zoo Tycoon is one that I liked a lot more than I thought I would. I was excited about the game because I played Zoo Tycoon growing up, and I wanted to play the the board game version of it, but I also expected to not like it because board game adaptations from video games are always interesting in terms of how well they're going to be implemented. But I like Zoo Tycoon. I thought it really gave you the sense and feeling of managing a zoo. My biggest concern is it's a longer game and I don't know how often it'll get tabled. It's a lot that's going to come down to the insert and the setup of the final game, not the prototype. But I'm very excited to actually get it and see how often it gets tabled. It's one that I'm a little worried will not stick around just because of the infrequency of tabling it, but I really did enjoy it a lot. It's just the balance is there's the multiple categories of games. There's those that I'm happy to just not play again because who cares? There's those that I want to play again, but practically speaking, there's limited time and there's always new games. And Zoo Tycoon falls into that middle zone of I really liked it. It's a 4 to 5 for me, but I don't know if ultimately it will stick around. I hope it does. We'll see. Also, my wife might make me keep it, so we'll see that. Then we had Hidden Leaders expansion. The expansion to Hidden Leaders, Forgotten Leaders, I believe it was called. I think, maybe, was that what it was called? Corrupted? No, I don't know. It had corruption, and it had, they had the other leaders, the new brand, the Guardians, as well as the relics, or the artifacts. But Hidden Leaders brought you a few new things to the Hidden Leaders game. Mostly good things. 2 of the modules I really enjoyed. The 3rd module was Take It or Leave It. Corruption was Take It or Leave It for me, but I like the new faction, and I like the artifacts. Then we have the Oceans expansion, which brought you, again, more stuff to Oceans. If you played Oceans, I like the what's it called again? The Oceans, Legends of the Deep. The Legends of the Deep leaders from Oceans. Overall, I thought they added to the game in a way that I would always play with them, I think. Even with new players, I'm kind of tempted. Maybe not with new players. There might be a lot. The decision space around them could be a lot for new players. But otherwise, I think I'd always play with those. Then we have Power Rangers deck building game. This is from Renegade Games. I've been meaning to dive into this one for a while now. Finally dove into it. I really liked it. I did, but I also liked it in the sense that I have too many deck building games that are fighting for my attention. I still have the DC Comics deck building game from Cryptozoic. That's one that I play with my son, and then my go-to are going to be things like Dominion or other deck building experiences that I think are more gamer focused and less IP focused. I think Power Rangers was fun, was enjoyable, but it was IP focused and not one I need to keep playing. Then we have Undo, another Undo game. Can't remember what this one was. It was like the Last Supper type situation, not like that Last Supper, but like a king's death or something and trying to navigate it. The Undo system is a very intriguing system as far as what I want it to be, and a less intriguing system as far as what it actually is. I find that it is a little bit of a detective style trying to figure things out where I want it to be actually about time travel. And so I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I don't know, I think Exit and Unlock are my go-to for escape rooms, with Exit, with Unlock still taking the cake. Then we have Horizons of Spirit Island. I dove into Horizons of Spirit Island. You should probably have seen a review of this by now. I got it because I want to see what it added to the genre, and the answer is not much. It adds 5 new spirits, which I think are worth picking up. For me, I saw Great in the Games announce that they're like keeping their options open as far as releasing some sort of spirit pack with like the thicker boards. So I think I'm going to wait around. I'm going to get rid of my Horizons of Spirit Island, and I'll get the spirits from Horizons of Spirit Island later. Past that, the gameplay is the same. It's just different components and 5 new spirits. For me, I'm happy to keep my Spirit Island, and I'll get those 5 spirits when they're available as promos, hopefully, because otherwise I'll have to pick up Horizon Spirit Island again, which I don't want to do. But I also want my spirit boards to match, so there is that. Anyways, that was Horizon Spirit Island. Then we have Truth's Too Terrible. I played Truth's Too Terrible, which is a game of just a deduction game of trying to gather different evidence, and a little bit of deduction is trying to figure out, hide information from other players while gathering information yourself. It's quick, it's simple, not my favorite deduction game, but certainly one I didn't mind. Then we have Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game, which I played half a game like 4 years ago. I never actually played a full game, so I'm counting this as my official play of Dead of Winter. But Dead of Winter, Crossroads game. I liked it. I think I prefer other cooperative games over Dead of Winter. I'd rather play Zombicide, where you're actually beating up the Zombicide, or I'd rather play Shadows over Camelot if I wanted something that felt like Dead of Winter, but was more thematically up my aisle. Up my aisle? To my taste? Something like that, one of those expressions. And then lastly, in the games we're not going heavily into, we have Between Two Cities Essential Edition from Stonemaier Games. This is one of those games that's going on my shelf with the expectation that it will probably leave at some point when it's not getting played. I dove into it, I enjoyed it, it's fun, simple. It gave me very similar vibes to Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, but actually easier and more accessible. So for me, Between Two Cities is actually easier to table with people who are looking for a lighter experience. So I enjoyed it, I'm happy to play it again. I just don't know if it'll actually be pulled. So it's one of those games that I'm like, I liked you, and goes on the shelf, and then a year from now, if it doesn't get played, it goes away. And that's what we have as far as the 19 games I dove into, all new to me this month. And then for the 11, I'll be diving into a bit more, starting off with Framework. Framework, from Murray Rosenberg. I really liked it. I liked it a lot. Framework is a game that, if you've played Sagani or Nova Luna, this gives you a very similar puzzle. You're going to have your your frames effectively. I probably have review coverage at some point, I don't know when, but you have these frames you're trying to manage, and every tile is both going to help you fulfill goals while also giving you, it's going to give you goals that you want to fulfill while also helping you fulfill goals. Although some tiles will just fulfill goals and some tiles will just give you goals. But you're trying to create a bit of a board in front of you that will let you get rid of all your goal pieces faster than the other players. It's like Nova Luna, it's like Sagani. I think this is my favorite one though, because the frames in framework allow you to chain tiles in a way that Nova Luna and Sagani do not. For me, all these games are about the manipulation of trying to build a board that fulfills multiple criteria at once. I really enjoy that puzzle. I have all 3 of them in my collection, which is rare for me, I guess. I feel like I should get rid of some of them, but for right now I have all 3. They are great games that I want. If I want to play a 45-minute long game, they're great, and they all do the same general concept slightly differently. It's interesting because once upon a time I had all of Uwe Rosenberg's Polyomino games in my collection, and I slowly got rid of them because I found I chose specific ones. If that happens with these, if I find myself only playing Framework over the other 2, yes, I'll get rid of the other 2. For right now, though, I think they all have a place for right now. Then we have the Wolves. The Wolves from Pandasaurus Games, which is somewhere over here. Where did the Wolves go? The Wolves is over there on the floor. The Wolves from Pandasaurus Games. That is one that I had high expectations for and did not meet those expectations. The game looked beautiful and had this tableau building aspect of building out your powers. Every time you upgrade, you put things down on the board, you're choosing a piece to upgrade from and upgrading your speed, your amount of wolves you can move, your howl distance. You're trying to upgrade yourself as you go. The actual game I found a little too loose and ambient as far as the actual gameplay goes. I found the Wolves was one that and it really bothered me because when I review something, when I cover something, I like to be able to say precisely what it is I didn't like. And saying something was too ambient feels vague to me. It feels like a vague criticism, which I don't like. I like being able to give criticisms that would speak to me as a viewer, that I'd be able to look at that and say, yes, it was too random, or it's too tight, or things like that in the game. Saying it was a little too ambient to me is such a vague criticism because if I look at games like Vindication or even Framework, I could also say they're too ambient. I don't feel they are, but I can see someone saying that, and so I don't know what it is about the Wolves, but it didn't really compel me enough. Then we have Dark Souls, the Painted World of Ariamis. Or, well, the Tomb of Giants as well. I just picked that one for the moment. Dark Souls, that's another one I have review coverage up for. That was an interesting one to me, because I walked in with negative and positive expectations. Negative expectations because it's Dark Souls, which has a history in the board game space of having too many issues, and positive because of the fact that I've generally liked most Steamforged titles. Not all of them, but most of them I've enjoyed to some degree or another. And Dark Souls falls in the latter category. It's a game I enjoyed to some degree or another. The problem is the some degree or another means it's one that ultimately won't get picked. To me, Dark Souls is one that I enjoyed the dungeon crawling experience. I enjoyed the leveling up. I don't care for the IP at all. My biggest thing is I really enjoyed the boss fights the most in it. Like in Dark Souls, it's you're playing a degree of grind as you go through the experience, and you go through encounter after encounter, and then you get to a boss fight which has more tactical play to it, where you actually have to really try hard to survive. The minion fights feel a little bit more random, and even when you lose, it almost feels random to them. But for me, the boss fights were the compelling aspect of it. And I really liked Monster Hunter World from Steamforged Games. The boss fights in Dark Souls felt similar to the boss fights, all the fights in Monster Hunter World, and I have that one coming, and I'd rather play that one. So overall, I guess where I am with Dark Souls is I liked it, but I liked aspects of it, and the aspects I liked the most of it I can find in Monster Hunter World. Then we have Civilization and New Dawn. This is a tough one. This is one of those games that I looked at, I played a few times, and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, I should keep this, and then I was like, I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to. I know myself. I think Civilization New Dawn is very solid, and I really enjoy it. High recommendation for it. I do recommend it a lot, especially if you like the Civ genre, if you like this style of game. I really enjoyed the puzzle going on, the card puzzle. If you played Arc Nova, it has that puzzle of your actions shift along, and you choose an action that's powered up, and you cycle it back, and you have to try to figure out which actions you want at any given point, and manage your economy around that as you build out and expand. And I liked it. I just feel I like other control games more. My biggest compelling aspect of Sid Meier's Civilization was New Dawn, was the tech aspect of trying to figure out which techs to upgrade, but even that I feel gets procedural as you play it a few times. So I liked Civilization New Dawn, I recommend Civilization New Dawn, and I know myself in my collection, and I know this one will not get picked and tabled. Then we have Formosa Tea. Formosa Tea was a tough one for me. I played a single game of Formosa Tea. You won't see a review of that one. Formosa Tea is one that I played it, and I found the first half to be very confusing, and I found the second half really clicked, but I don't think it clicked enough for me to care enough to dive back into it. It's a game of managing your tea production. You're going to be trying to figure out your actions of where you gather your tea and which actions you take in the experience, and overall, I thought it was a solid game. Overall, I enjoyed what Formosa Tea was doing. but I think it reminded me of heavier games that I would rather play. Like, it almost felt like a Lacerda in terms of the weight of what's going on, or the slight obfuscation. It probably is lighter than a Lacerda, almost certainly, but it gave me, like, I felt very obfuscated as I first dove into it, and even as things made sense, I was like, you know what, this is very cool. This is very cool. I'd rather play other heavy Euro games, or even medium-weight Euro games. Then we have Pendulum. Pendulum is an interesting one. This is one that's been sitting on my shelf for, I want to say, 2 years now, waiting for me to finally table, play, and review. And Pendulum is one that I think there is a compelling game here. I just don't think I care enough about real time to make it stay in my collection. And I think the biggest problem for it is it's the kind of game you need people who understand what's going on, and people who understand what's going on are going to have a strong advantage over those that don't, which makes it fall into the category of a game that I'm only going to play regularly with the same group of people, or not at all. And despite liking what it's doing, it's still going to shift into the not at all category for me. Pendulum gives you a degree of trying to manage timers as you figure out where to place different people and to move your timers, and I found that consistently, whenever you teach it to new people, it is confusing and it's a painful experience as people ultimately mess up and screw up too many times before they get that muscle memory down. So it kind of requires multiple plays with the same group for it to shine. But I do like the game once you get past that. The management of the game, the grabbing of the various locations you're gathering and slotting into your board to upgrade your tableau, I think it's a very, very cool system for a group that's going to play it a lot, which is not my group. From there we have Babylonia. Babylonia from Ludonova Games. Ludonova? Oh, it's from Ludonova. Interesting. I didn't realize that. I'm pretty sure I've covered some games from them. I think they did Airmail recently. And Sabica? Is that Ludonova? Either way. Babylonia. Babylonia from Ludonova Games is one that I really enjoyed. This is from Reina Knizia, and it feels like it kind of captures that Tigris and Euphrates magic while being a more accessible version of it. In the game, you basically have these tiles that you're placing down to try to create connections and to eventually encircle cities and monuments, or whatever they're called, but you're trying to encircle these things to get various powers and to get points. Ultimately, the way you chain your people in this game makes it a very compelling experience. Your first play will be all about how you make yourself score well, and subsequent plays will be how you screw over others while making yourself score well. It is a tight game, a very high-scoring game, a game which everything you do will give you points, and trying to figure out the optimal way to do so is where the magic shines. Very intriguing game that really comes down to just specific placements in specific ways at specific times that will all tie together to give you a very high-scoring engine, or not. And we have Cantaloop. Cantaloop I really enjoyed. I said this one was from Friedman Friest the first time I saw it, because it says Friedman, and I kind of didn't read the rest, which is very American of me. I just saw Friedman, I know a single Friedman Friest, and I was like, Friedman Friest designed this game, and he did not. He did not. Also, I should have known that because it's called Cantaloop and not Fantaloop. If Friedman Friest designed it, it would be called Fantaloop. Anyways, you'd get that if you understand what I'm saying, otherwise it's not funny at all. Anyways, Cantaloop is from Friedman Findesen. I'm probably butchering that name, I apologize. But it's basically a game that's a throwback to a style of game like Myst or Monkey Island or those kinds of things. And it works really well. I don't even like Myst or Monkey Island, but I liked this game. I like the concept of you going through these adventures. I'm not going to spoil much, but you're going to go through these pages over here. And these pages have these codes in it. And the way you pair up those codes with different cards will either have things falling apart, or have technology exploding on you, or have you finding the right answers. So it very much has an unlock style of gameplay to it, but in a way that is arguably the most compelling game in the unlock genre that I've seen since Unlock. I really like it a lot. It may, if you're calling them all a single genre, this might be my favorite one in the genre, and I'm not even finished yet. I've only just started playing through it. I'm in the middle of my first adventure, so I like it. I like it a lot. We have Unconscious Mind. Unconscious Mind from Fantasia Games. I love that game. I thought it was incredibly well done, and my biggest critique about it is something that they're apparently already looking into it. And they're already addressing and solving in whatever way. But Unconscious Mind is a game that manages to merge things in different ways, that gives you a puzzle of how to solve things as you build up your tableau. Ultimately, it comes down to worker placement as you gather various resources to trade in to heal your patients. Other kinds it comes down to. So you're trying to gather these resources that represent, I guess, your knowledge or your application of knowledge, whatever it is. And you're trying to improve in your ability to talk about different things, and you're gathering different cards, and you're building up a tableau slowly but surely. The way you build up the tableau, as you place workers, is going to trigger your time tracker moving around and triggering certain rows, which lends itself to a very, very rewarding cycle of everything you do gives you multiple rewards, which I really, really like. It's something I saw before in Encyclopedia and other games, and I loved it in Encyclopedia, and I love it in Unconscious Mind as well. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really like it, and like I said, my biggest complaint was the fact that I felt that the worker placement was a little too loose. It was a little too easy to go anywhere you wanted, and apparently they're already looking into and addressing that, so we'll see how that plays out. I am intrigued and excited for it. I'm, well, not intrigued, I've played it, I'm not intrigued, I'm just plain excited for it. I arguably like it more than Endless Winter, although I do need more time with it to see. Ultimately, a few plays as a review, sure. I mean, I like having as many plays as possible under my belt for a review, but ultimately when it comes to prototype coverage, especially when I have to give the prototype to somebody else, it does make it a little harder to get more than a few plays in. But I think I do need time for it to settle and sink. But it is one that I think I like it more than Endless Winter. They're both 5 out of 5 to me. I love them both. But Unconscious Mind is really solid for me. It's a very strong, it's like a strong Feld or, what's his name? Great Western Trail. What's his name? Pfister. It's like a Pfister or a Feld in terms of its depth, a little higher than Feld, around Pfister, a little lighter than Lacerda. I'm specifically mentioning that because a lot of people were concerned that it was too heavy. There's a lot going on, but it merges together very well. It does not have the mental mind load of a Lacerda at all. I say this as somebody who has played only one Lacerda, and I'm still uncertain whether I want to keep playing them or eventually move on from them. I like them. I do. They're just, I don't know, like, once I'm going to that level, I'd almost rather play Food Chain Magnet. Then we have Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance. This is one from Command Games on Spin Master, and this is not as good as Marvel Zombies. For context, if you've played this game and you're like, hey, this is not that good, well, first of all, then you probably shouldn't get Marvel Zombies, because I do like Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, I do. But I do think that Marvel Zombies, playing Marvel Zombies, is a better experience, giving you a lot more depth into the scenarios you can build with more than 4 tiles, and just the amount of content and stuff going on in the game. For me, Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, I got it hoping for a similar experience, and it does give you a similar experience, but for me, this one's a 4 out of 5. I like it, but it does not hold the same level of stuff that Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance does. I think both of them are very solid games, and I think the full Marvel Zombies is better. I may have said the wrong term a second ago, but the full Marvel Zombies is better than Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, but it is good. If you're looking for an accessible $35 entryway into Zombicide, or Marvel Zombies specifically, then this is solid, and it's worth picking up. But I would say if you don't like this at all, you probably shouldn't get Marvel Zombies. If you do like Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, then you probably should get Marvel Zombies, because I think it does the same but better, if you're willing to shell out for the extra stuff, that is. And then lastly we have Cthulhu Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown. This is more Cthulhu Death May Die, all in a good way. I shouldn't say all in a good way, because I guess if I'm comparing Cthulhu Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown against Cthulhu Death May Die, I would say there's only one area where Cthulhu Death May Die wins. Fear of the Unknown gives you 10 more Investigator, it gives you 6 more scenarios, it gives you 2 more Elder ones, it gives you all the same content, but then it also gives you relics, and it also gives you the additional monsters, so it just gives you more stuff, so why shouldn't you get Fear of the Unknown? Well, I can only give you one reason, because the first scenario, in the scenario I played in Fear of the Unknown, I only played one scenario, it's a prototype, but the scenario I played in Fear of the Unknown versus the first scenario in Cthulhu Death May Die, to this day, the first scenario in Cthulhu Death May Die is my favorite scenario. It is the best one by far compared to all the other scenarios. I like a lot of the scenarios, I think the first one is the best one, and it is better than the only scenario I played here. That's the only compelling aspect for a regular Death May Die. Past that, I'd recommend Fear of the Unknown because it gives you the same stuff but more. And I think the same stuff but more is good. Although personally I recommend getting all the stuff. Cthulhu Death May Die is one of the few games where I've gone through all the content I have, or nearly all the content I have. Most games that I go all in on, I go all in because I love the game and I love the journey and I love the experience, but then I play the base game plus an expansion, sometimes half the content. In the case of Zombicide, I've played like 80% of what I have. In the case of Death May Die, I've played like 97% of what I have. I think I have not played 2 of the lost scenarios. That's it. Everything else I've played, every other encounter, every other card, every other character from all the stuff I have, I've dived into all of it with that one exception. I highly recommend Cthulhu Death May Die in general. It's an incredible game, one of my favorite games, and one that every single time is just a good time. And that is it. These are the 30 games I played for November. Like I said already, this is the second last in the series. We will have one more for December, and then from there onwards, we'll have to figure out what kind of videos we do for next year. There's plenty of videos. There's always plenty of videos. But this particular series, one thing I will say is, one thing I started doing as a result of the series is a quarterly roundup. Every quarter, every 3 months, I do a roundup of all the games I played in those 3 months and talk and rank them effectively. Rank them as my favorite games in those 3 months. And I might still do that. That I think is more interesting, kind of, because it's a long, like hour-long video, but you can just skip to the end and find the best games I've played. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.